I didn't want to leave Adobe. I didn't want to stop using Adobe because that's all I had known since high school. And I had been using their software, the programs where you could just outright buy without having to pay a subscription for years. And when I had updated my Mac in, I think, 2014, I was still using Adobe CC 5.5 or CS. It was Adobe C, and it wasn't CC yet. It was Adobe CS Creative Suite 5.5, 5.5. It was a weird version, but I was using that version for years, and I wasn't having to pay a subscription. Then when I updated my Mac, everything just fell apart, and my program wouldn't work. Many other programs wouldn't work. And I was faced with the situation, with the question, do I pay for a subscription or do I look for something else? Have you switched from Adobe to Affinity? Let me know in the comments if you have and what your experience has been, whether it's been a good experience, a bad experience. I want to hear it. And the rest of the art community needs to hear it, because we need to know that there are other options aside from Adobe, and we need to know what those options are, whether they're good, what your experience is with them, and whether you would recommend them or not. Thankfully, I had seen this coming. I knew that at some point, my software that I was using for years was going to quit on me because the updates weren't going to be supported anymore. And so for some reason, I don't know why, but I had the insight or wisdom, whatever you want to call it, to luck, providence, to look into possible alternatives for the programs I was using through Adobe, which were Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign. I stumbled upon the Affinity products. Now, at the time, they only had Affinity Photo and Affinity Designer, but then later on, they brought in Affinity Publisher. So Affinity Photo is the copycat. I shouldn't call it a copycat because it's not exactly like Photoshop, but it's the Photoshop equivalent. Affinity Designer is the Illustrator equivalent. It does vector, and Publisher is the InDesign, because it does page layout and everything. And I have been using all of these Affinity programs ever since they first came out. Well, probably not since they first came out, since I first heard about them. I have not used Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, or InDesign since 2014, and it's 2024 now, so that's what, 10 years? Wow, has it been that long? Whew, maybe it was later. I'll have to check my dates on that, and I'll put the correct date right here on the screen. I've been using Affinity products for years, and I have not had to once look back and try and use Adobe products, or pay a subscription for Adobe in order to use their products, because everything I need as an illustrator is right here in Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer, and Affinity Publisher. I use them constantly. Every day I'm opening one of these programs to use. I lay out all of my books in Publisher. I do my vector artwork in Designer, and I do some layout and photo manipulation as well as illustration in both Designer and in Photo. So they've been extremely helpful to me. So that's my story. So this is how I came to use the Affinity suite. And I just want to put this out there for any artists who think that they cannot leave Adobe, because they rely on Adobe so much, and so they're willing to pay the subscription. That's fine. If you're willing to pay a subscription fee for software, that's fine. But just know that Affinity products are a one-time purchase product. You do not have to pay a subscription fee. That is what sold me on them in the first place. Secondly, they are extremely well crafted and well designed software programs. They work just as well. They don't have a lot of the same features as some of the Adobe products. Like, for example, one of the things that I used in Illustrator, that I relied heavily on Illustrator for, was the live trace feature, which allows you to trace your artwork or your lines. In my case, I would trace my line art um, with that and vectorize it so that I had the vectorized line art, because there wasn't an easy way to draw vector lines with line weights as if you would when you're inking a comic or something. So I needed some vector art, and so I would use the live trace feature in Adobe Illustrator in order to trace my line art and turn it into vector art. Affinity Designer does not have that, and it's something I wish they would include in that, but I have found some workarounds. And I did a video about a program called Photo P. I don't know why I'm pointing here. I'm gonna add something here, maybe. uh, Maybe there'll be something, or a link in the description. I'll have all links in the description. So it's a browser-based software where you can actually vectorize your artwork, and it does it for you. It's just this basically the same feature as Illustrator had that I was using for so long. But I'm using this free software now. Affinity products are a very, very, very close to um, to being able to replicate all the Adobe, well, not all the main designer Adobe softwares, so Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign. Um, they have they have something for every artist who is looking to use an alternative to those programs. And what's great is right now they are having a 50% off sale. Everything is 50% off, and as well as giving you a 6-month free trial. So you can try it for free for 6 months. But if you want to just buy everything outright, you can get the Affinity version 2 universal license for $82.99. That includes the license for designer, photo, and publisher, all for Mac, Windows, and iPad, all in one for $82.99, one-time payment. Otherwise, each program is about $34.99. For Mac, for Windows, and for iPad, it's $9.29. So right now they're on version 2, but every version you will have to pay a one-time fee in order to get that. But that's way better than having to pay a monthly fee, not to mention the crazy um, cancellation fees that you would have to pay if you wanted to cancel your Adobe subscription. So I just want to put this out there for any Illustrator artist who is looking for an alternative to Adobe, who doesn't know where to turn or what to do. Just know that with the Affinity Suite, you can export as a Photoshop file and then open that Photoshop file into other programs if you need to. I have done that multiple times. I export as a Photoshop file into in order to bring my artwork into Clip Studio Paint, which is what I use to illustrate some of my comic books and things. But my other illustration work, I use the Affinity Suite for, and it is amazing. I can't say enough how great it is, and it's cheap. Not cheap as in, oh, it's gonna break every time I want to use it, but it's cheap as in inexpensive. You don't have to pay an arm and a leg for this program, and you can use it whenever you want without having to pay a subscription because it's yours. You own the software. If you want to check out all of the Affinity software, I have all the links down in the script description below. And let me know in the comments if you have switched over from Adobe to Affinity. I'd love to hear how many people have done that, what your problems have been. Maybe list any problems you've had with either Affinity or Adobe. If this video has given you any sort of value or has helped you in any way, I'd love to hear about it. I'd also love to hear what types of videos you'd like to see next. I'm an illustrator. I live mainly in the illustration sphere of things. And so I've been freelancing for about 14, 15 years now. And I'd love to hear what types of videos you'd like to see. I've been doing some live drawing occasionally. I've also been doing some inking videos where it shows the before and after. But I'd love to share whatever information I can give you. Maybe I'll talk about some freelancing, some different programs that I'm using, tips and tricks. Any of that is what you can probably find on this channel. And thanks for watching.